Estamos começando mais uma Wikimetal Happy Hour, dessa vez com um convidado especialíssimo, diretamente da Noruega, o multi-instrumentista Vegard Veiten, mais conhecido como Ihsahn. How are you, Ihsahn?
I'm fine, thank you, and you?
I'm fine. Did I pronounce your name right, or kind of?
Vegard Sverre Tveitan. It's hard. I know. Yeah.
I know it's hard, but Ihsahn, it's easier, right?
It's easy. That's a good thing with the stage name, that it's I guess more globally pronounceable.
Yeah, I have to say as a compliment that you're one of the most creative artists in playing heavy music today, and it's very. I suppose it's a challenge. It's not easy to be original today after most artists have done a lot, and is it a challenge for you to still be creative and try to be original in your sound?
Of course, but then again, that has always been my motivation. I think even before I started playing in bands, when I was just recording demos, it was like 11 or 12 on my 4-track recorder. That's been the appeal for me. That sensation of putting sounds together and making songs, and the excitement of that. So, yeah, as you say or indicate, I've been doing some different musical approaches and kind of tried my efforts in different musical landscapes, if you will. But generally, that is just part of me trying to put myself in situations and in projects that where I'm just as excited and enthusiastic about making the music as when I first started out.
Eu perguntei para ele sobre qual a dificuldade e o desafio de você conseguir ser criativo e original hoje em dia, depois principalmente na música pesada. Muitos artistas já fizeram muito quase tudo já foi feito, né? E ele falou que isso, eu fiz até um elogio falando que ele é um dos artistas mais criativos hoje em dia na música pesada, e ele falou que realmente é isso que é o drive dele, que é isso que motiva ele a se envolver com projetos que ele possa pensar em fazer coisas diferentes. And you just released, you're about to release your second EP. You released another EP already this year. So is this a format that you're comfortable with now? Is it something that you think you're going to keep releasing EPs from now on?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I grew up, with the album format, and I think in the pop industry in general, of course, there's been a long tradition for just doing singles, and I know a lot of artists within other genres are now kind of moving on to more EP or single formats. But I think for the type of music that I do, and for fans of this style of music, metal or rock oriented, I think people still have a very strong relationship to the album format of like 45 to 60 minutes of songs that hopefully has some cohesion, and that's kind of my preferred format. But it was very interesting to approach these two EPs. It's still, in together they form 10 recorded songs, which is kind of the same as what you would expect from a full-length album. But creatively, it was a very different approach, kind of singling out the extreme aspects and everything that was kind of close to heart and roots oriented for me with Telemark, and then to do the exact opposite with this Pharaoh CP that is just about to come out. And it was just a very, very nice creative change, after releasing full-length albums every second year since I was 16.
Is that it? I didn't count exactly. Did you release an album per year since you're
every second year. Every second year.
So
on average.
That's unreal. That's a great achievement. Eu perguntei para ele sobre o formato, né, dos álbuns, dos lançamentos dele. Ele já lançou um EP esse ano. Ele está prestes a lançar o segundo EP já esse ano. E eu perguntei se ele vai continuar lançando EPs. Ele disse que não, que ele, apesar de ele ter gostado desse novo formato de poder lançar coisas com uma frequência um pouco maior, que ele considera que esses 2 EPs juntos têm 10 músicas, então é como se ele tivesse lançado um álbum, mas ele é da época do álbum, assim como eu também sou, da geração onde os artistas se empenhavam em fazer um álbum completo do começo ao fim, né, que tivesse 45, 50 minutos de duração. Tell me about a curiosity, Ihsahn, about the pandemic. I don't know how it did affect Norway. I think that it wasn't, of course, I'm pretty sure it wasn't affected as we have been affected here in Brazil. But has that impacted you artistically?
To a great extent, yes, because this was supposed to be a very huge live year for me, as both these EPs were planned to be extended into live shows. So I was already scheduled to premiere my Telemark show at this year's Inferno Festival in Oslo, and hopefully to play during the summer, festivals and a set based on the aesthetics of that EP, with only the extreme side of what I do. And then as a consequence of, or like continuation of the release of Pharaohs, I wanted to do touring where I did a set list based on the more mellow and progressive elements of my catalog. So of course, that didn't really, and plus everything that we had planned with Emperor, that got canceled. So in that respect, we've been hugely affected, but just the same as every other artist around the world. But I'm very humble to the fact that the Norway, as you say, and the infrastructure of our very small country, we have been very, very fortunate, and I'm well aware that there are a lot of countries around the world who are not as in such a privileged position, in this global crisis. So there are no complaints from my end. And on a more funny note, I mean, me and my wife, we have been working out of our home studios for over 20 years. So this social distancing thing, we've been doing it forever.
Eu perguntei para ele sobre como que a pandemia afetou ele como artista, né? Ele falou que, como todos os artistas do mundo, ele foi afetado muito fortemente, porque ele tinha um ano planejado já com muitos shows. Ele ia fazer shows para promover esse novo EP, o Pharaohs, que vai sair agora. Ele ia fazer muitos shows também com o Emperor, a banda antiga dele, mas ele falou que ele se sente muito, muito seguro, porque a Noruega foi um dos países menos afetados, né, um país menor, e ele até brincou, porque ele já fez muita música já com a mulher dele, no estúdio deles que eles estão, então essa parte do distanciamento social ele já pratica há muitos e muitos anos. And talking about the repertoire in these 2 EPs, on Telemark, you recorded, apart from your own songs, you recorded some cover songs from Lenny Kravitz and Iron Maiden, and on Pharaohs, that will be released later in the month, you recorded kind of unusual songs from Portishead to Aha. Have those artists, do you know if those artists listened to the songs? Did they get back to you, or did they say anything about it? Any of them?
No, of course not. I mean, I'm sure they are not aware. I was in contact with the Aha's management briefly, as just since they're Norwegian, and just to sort out some contractual publishing rights, etc. On behalf of my record label. But beyond that, I don't expect them to either band to follow whoever covers them. There's that was not my intention either.
No, I totally understand, and I believe you, but I think they should because they are fantastic versions. Eu perguntei para ele sobre os artistas que ele fez cover nesses 2 EPs. Ele no Telemark, que saiu mais no começo do ano, ele fez Rothschild do Iron Maiden e Rock and Roll is Dead do Lenny Kravitz, e no Pharaohs ele gravou a e Portishead. Eu perguntei se os artistas ouviram as músicas, se eles entraram em contato. Ele falou que não, ele não tem a menor pretensão que eles ouçam. Eu até brinquei que eles deveriam ouvir, porque as versões ficaram realmente muito boas. And in the beginning of the 90s, Ihsahn, you helped to shape black metal as a new style. It became almost something completely new from what it was done before, and now you're still renovating and writing new material. I don't even know how to describe it. It's and I don't really personally, I'm not into labels, but it's difficult to explain to someone how your sound is like. What is there a way to describe it? I mean, would you how would you describe it, the music you make today, to someone that has never heard you before?
I guess that would depend on what record.
I mean, the newer, the current.
Oh, yeah. Well, because that's the thing. I never really considered this, going into a project. But so for me, I often explain Pharaohs, the new EP that's out on Friday, in relation to Telemark. As in my perspective, they are kind of two sides of the same conceptual idea. So whereas Telemark focused entirely on what was musically close to my heart, close to my my cultural roots, my geographical roots, and I was singing in Norwegian, so it was everything that I knew, and also musically. That's why I picked Lenny Kravitz and early Iron Maiden, because it created a sound and something that was very, very much in my blood, if you will. And Pharaohs was me exploring everything else, doing musical journeys that I haven't done to that extent before, and kind of challenging myself into new territories, with pop and more experimental sounds and expressions. And as I say, with Telemark, that's the title of the county that I live in, and with Pharaohs, even the cover songs indicate travel, and an outward gaze, because roads and Manhattan skyline, Pharaohs, the lighthouse of Alexandria. It is all about everything that is out there, if you will. So in all ways, these are just two opposite approaches to elements that has been part of my music for many years, but still just distilled out and singled out in two directions.
That's very interesting, and that could be a really interesting double album, with Telemark being the heavier and something that's more related to what you've done before, and Pharaohs being the broader scope of what you could do, what you can do. Eu perguntei para ele sobre eu falei que no começo dos anos 80 ele ajudou a mudar o som do black metal, e até hoje ele continua se renovando muito. E como ele descreveria a música dele para uma pessoa que não conhece a música dele? Ele falou que esses dois projetos, eles realmente eles contam muito sobre o que é a personalidade dele. O primeiro sendo uma coisa mais do coração, uma coisa mais do tipo de música que ele já cantou, ele até canta em norueguês, e mais pesado. E o Pharaohs, que é a Telemark, é a cidade onde ele mora, a vila onde ele mora, então é uma coisa mais realmente da casa dele, da personalidade dele. E o Pharaohs é uma viagem, né, uma coisa mais distante, onde ele pode viajar por outros caminhos. Have you always been so open-minded musically?
Probably not always, because I think during my teens, as with a lot of teenagers, especially if they're into some sort of music. I mean, music is an art form that is even reflected on the outside, of young people. So you often in your youth, which I find typical, is that you single out, you know, a musical style that is kind of attached to the culture that you associate yourself with, and then that kind of helps you carve out your social uh, individuality, if you will. And so you can easily spot, so people who are dedicated to a certain style of music. You can watch their clothes and see what kind of music they like. But and I think that is an important role, or part of growing up. Carving out that and be very specific to a certain style of music and a certain expression. But then uh, it would be, as with everything else, it would be very sad if you stop that development at 16 or 17. So and in relation to music, I think I've been very, very fortunate, as when we started with Emperor back in 91. Of course, there was no scene, there was no success, there was no money, there was no commercial aspirations. So we went into that with purely artistic um, uh, kind of motivations. The only motivation was to try our best to express these ideas we had, in our head, but in the rehearsal room, but to record it properly and have a full-length album that was, expressing that. So that it would be a career or anything like that was not even in our minds. And I when I've been so fortunate to that regardless, it became my job, and I can spend all my time doing what I love like that. I don't want to lose that kind of uncompromising uh, and exciting journey in music. So that, as I mentioned earlier, uh, I I try to put myself in situations where I have a similar kind of approach of trying to pushing the limits of where I can take my music. And I guess because of circumstances, I was allowed to do that at a very early age. And I often get asked this, that, oh, how come you and say Garm from Ulver, or some people from the Norwegian original black metal scene in Norway end up all this doing this experimental music. And to be very, very honest, I think it's strange that not more musicians from that era did not continue that journey, because we were, most of us in this original scene were teenagers. So when you're kind of pushing the envelope of your creativity uh, at 16 or 17, I think it's very strange if you wouldn't, when given the opportunity, that you would stop that growing up. So but each to his own. But I think it's just been a very natural, uh, keeping to, doing what I love. And
Eu perguntei para ele sobre a parte se ele sempre teve essa cabeça aberta para a música, do mesmo jeito que ele tem hoje, né? Ele falou que, obviamente, quando ele começou com os primeiros discos do Emperor, ele era muito novo, e quando você é muito novo, você tenta se adaptar ao seu gosto musical, até a sua roda social, né? Você pode dizer que tipo de música aquela pessoa ouve somente olhando a roupa que ela usa. Então, ele sabe que ele tinha uma cabeça um pouco mais fechada antigamente, mas isso foi uma evolução muito natural para ele, e ele ter aberto essa cabeça ao longo do tempo, e até para fazer o tipo de música que ele faz hoje. And do you think that your audience, your fans, did they follow the same evolution? Are they free to? Do you think that is it challenging in any way for them to listen to what you do now and understand that this was an evolution towards more freedom and artistic freedom? And is there kind of both worlds? Are there a lot of fans that complain that you're doing something different from the previous albums or the first albums of your career, or not?
Sure, there are some who complain, and some, but also a lot of people who are kind of coming into the music that I'm doing now that may not be interested in what I did in the past, and some people are kind of open to the whole expression, and I've been very fortunate that enough people kind of seem to follow along, as I'm still here after very soon, almost 30 years. But in general, I mean, I I get that a lot. Like every second interview I do is like, oh, will there be another Emperor record? And that may seem like a criticism in some way to what I'm doing now, but at the same time, as a music fan, I have a very strong relationship to some old records that I grew up with, and that were soundtracks to my young life. So I'm particularly attached to them. It's not so much about what the artist put into them as what I put into them. And when people ask, will there be another Emperor album? I think a lot of the times it's because they want more of that. They want to relive and have more of the same experience, and in there's a compliment, I think. And if I've been part of making music that people have a similar relationship to, as I have to some of my favorite artists and albums, that is just a huge compliment, and a very humble fact. And on the other hand, I think what attracted people to Emperor in the first place was that it was very uncompromising. There were no commercial aspects to it, and there were, whether consciously or not, I think people are drawn to this style of music because they want something that is real and that has integrity. And I think if I have any obligation to those who have followed my music, it is to continue to be as uncompromising and as truthful and kind of enthusiastic about making the music as when I first started out, and not try to mold my creative output for whatever commercial reasons are. Oh, let's cut some corners here, and let's make this part more commercial so that we can sell more records. If I started doing that, I think I would doing myself and fans of this music a big disfavor.
Eu perguntei para ele se os fãs dele também têm essa visão aberta, essa mente aberta, e se eles evoluíram do mesmo jeito que ele evoluiu com o tempo. E ele falou que alguns sim, alguns não, mas ele entende as pessoas que querem ouvir aqueles mesmos discos. Ele não leva isso como uma coisa negativa, porque ele entende, como um fã de música, ele entende os fãs que querem ouvir aqueles primeiros discos, que tem aqueles primeiros discos como uma referência, mas que o que leva ele sempre a fazer, acho que a ter essa aceitação por parte dos fãs, é que eles, desde o início, sempre teve essa mesma atitude íntegra e nunca fez um negócio pela parte comercial, para ganhar dinheiro. Desde o início era assim e agora continua sendo. Ihsahn, are you? You say you're a music fan. Are you still a music fan? What kind of music fan are you? Are you the kind of music fan that still listens to the same album that you used to listen when you were a kid, or are you the kind of music fan that looks for new things all the time and loves to listen to all kinds of music?
Both. I do both. Yeah. I've come to that age now that I absolutely love great music and not a big fan of bad music, and that is of course hugely subjective. So I tend to occasionally go back to the albums that I grew up with, my favorites from back then, and in rock and metal relations, I've even gone further back, so like beyond the early Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, and then like early Black Sabbath, and then going back to early Led Zeppelin, and Jimi Hendrix and Steve Ray Vaughan. You go backwards like that. But at the same time, I find it very refreshing to listen to more modern music as well. There are both commercial acts and underground things that are bring new sounds and new perspectives. Even like a few years ago, when James Blake, for example, hit would listen to, it's kind of a free form almost electronic style of music. You have really cinematic and heavy hitting type of R&B stuff that is texturally extremely heavy. And then I've always been a huge fan of soundtracks, so I listen to some old favorites from Jerry Goldsmith or something like that, but also a lot of new composers, and especially in media, for like TV series or films that are also very inventive. There are a lot of great music out there.
That's great. Eu perguntei para ele sobre se ele é um tipo de fã de música que ouve as coisas antigas, que ele gosta de ouvir os mesmos discos de sempre, que ele já está acostumado, ou se ele é o tipo de fã que gosta de procurar coisas novas, ouvir coisas novas, diferentes. Ele falou que os dois, ele sempre gosta de ouvir as coisas antigas, os discos do Black Sabbath, do Iron Maiden, do Judas Priest, do começo da carreira, mas ele também gosta de pesquisar coisas novas. James Blake, ele citou, gosta muito de trilhas sonoras e todo esse tipo de música nova. So before we finish, Ihsahn, everybody that's watching, I mean, everybody is supposed to be at home and taking care of themselves and by staying at home as much as you can, and a lot of people are bored and need some tips of what to listen to, what to watch. If there's any tip that you like to share with us from what have you been watching, any films or any TV series or any new artists you like to share with our viewers?
Well, what can I say? I think it's not really a new series, but one of my all-time favorite TV series, of more modern variety, would be the Hannibal TV series on Netflix. If you've seen that, or that comes highly recommended. The first, I guess this is not anything new, but like if those who missed the first season of True Detective, that is something really to be picked up. Musically, what can I recommend? I think recently, not a new discovery, but something that I've been going more in depth with than before would be Stravinsky, the Spring Offering. Some really textural music there, but yeah. That was a hard one. There's as I explained earlier, I have a wide variety of things.
I believe you. Are you familiar with a lot of Brazilian music at all, or I don't know if you did you listen to the new Sepultura album?
Not yet, but it's on my to-do list. Yeah,
it's very interesting. Very interesting album. I think you'll like it. But anyway,
did they work with Jens Bogren on this one?
Yeah.
Yes. That's what I thought. Yeah. It should be good then.
Yeah. I was there when they launched the album, and they said he's very serious and disciplined producer, and that helped them musically. You've worked with him before?
Yes, ever since my third solo album, he's been involved in all my albums on the mixing side.
Excellent.
Or him or Fascination Street. So I went over. He's a fascinating guy, and he's really talented, but as I say, he's so focused, and I have some stills. I was filming a bit from like behind the scenes thing, and it's the two of us in the studio, and it looks like it's a photo and not video, because I'm in the back going like this, and he's like this with his mouse, and you can just see his computer mouse moving, That's and you hear the music. That's everything. So it's a very quiet and very focused experience.
But I
That's
suppose
what it
you're
takes.
a very focused. You seem to be a very serious and disciplined musician as well. Were you always like did you study a lot of theory when you started playing, or
No,
how
no,
did you
no.
become such an interesting, unique musician?
Oh, thank you for saying that. No, it's I'm self-taught. I had some piano lessons, when I was a kid, and then I got the guitar. But most of the time I'm just self-taught, and for the larger part of my career, I also played with musicians who didn't have any music educations. So even if I had that language, at my disposal, it wouldn't help much because I didn't play with people who understood, that theoretical language. But I think I picked up, bits and pieces along the way, kind of building on what I know and kind of adding some theory and some techniques. For every new album, I try to bring in something new. And the good thing is, of course, that if if you like, you have a classical education or like a jazz master or something like that, you will kind of very early on uh, kind of finish off a lot of the techniques and like musical uh, kind of approaches. But for me, that I've been just going by heart, and now I can just pick top shelf of everything that that is a great idea. I never tried that before, and it's, for some it may be a very mundane and simple approach, but for me it's all new, so that keeps me
Yeah,
going for another decade or two, I would hope.
you're a very humble man, but I have to say, I have to thank you because you keep heavy music fresh because of your creativity and because of your originality, and thank you so much for that, because then we can still understand that there's a lot to explore, and your music is free, and there's nothing like freedom. So thank you for your music, man.
That is very kind of you. Thank you so much. And that's, again, that's what we are drawn to this music because we want to be individual, we want to be free, and we don't want to have censorship to art or anything like that. So that was what appeals to us, and that is the communication of this style of music, at heart. uh, Again, so, and I've been blessed, to be able to spend my time doing this, and for that I am very grateful. So thank you.
You have been blessed, and we're lucky that you've been blessed, and we've been blessed by listening to your music. And I hope we continue this conversation one day soon when you come visit us in Brazil, or maybe I'll go to Telemark one day soon.
Oh yeah, you're most
I have to
welcome.
bring some coats then.
Oh yes, you do. You do. No, but I mean, we're supposed to be coming to South America with Emperor, and the current situation, for all of us, for everybody else as well, it makes it very hard. But I mean, as soon as this is possible, we will be coming, because that's something on our to-do list that is, a high priority. So, and we can't wait. Very much
Excellent.
looking forward to that.
Thank you so much for your time, Ihsahn. That
Thank you
was
for your time.
very nice chat, and I hope to see you one day in person.
Likewise. Thank you so
All
much
the
for the
best.
support, man.
My
All the best.
my pleasure. Absolutely. That was Ihsahn on the Wikimetal Happy Hour. Thank you so much. See you next time, everyone.